If you like to arrive in style, the all-new Lexus LBX has arrived at Lexus of Blackburn. Make a dynamic entrance in a compact hybrid SUV like no other. Reimagined luxury in a captivating, vibrant and sporty package. Arrive in the Lexus LBX. But first, plan your arrival at Lexus of Blackburn. The breakthrough crossover Lexus LBX. Available to test drive now. LMCT 10093.
Each week we check on the real estate market to see how it's travelling. Joined tonight by Peter O'Malley from Harris Partners Real Estate. Peter, good evening once again.
Good evening to you, John.
Well, long weekend certainly in New South Wales. So let's just have a look. What was the auction activity? What are we looking at here?
Volumes were down unsurprisingly for a long weekend. A lot of people tend to try and avoid it if they're going to the auction market, John. Of those auctions that were scheduled, there was 470 scheduled for the weekend, which is down from about 1,200 the weekend before, to give you an idea. 300 results have come in to date, and of those 300 known results, 203 sold, giving you what's called a preliminary clearance rate of 68%. The big takeout for me, John, was 70 properties of the 470 scheduled for auction were withdrawn before the day.
Right, okay. All right. What does that tell you? When they're withdrawn before the day, is that because they can sense there's no interest? What is it? Or they think they can do better if they wait?
Look, it's just not going to clear on the day, and rather than expose their client and their vendor to humiliation of sorts, the agent quite rightly says, let's not put it to the open market on Saturday. Let's go out next week with a clear asking price. Yep. And deal with it from there. I've gone through each suburb and tried to look for trend lines in those results, John, and I would say it's the middle to the bottom half of the market where the withdrawals are most pronounced. They're still bidding in the middle upper end of the market to the degree that it's worth going to auction, but certainly apartments in suburbia, the suburbs are clearly weaker than what you might call the inner city or the, up the North Shore and eastern suburbs.
Is it hard to follow? Because it seems every few days there's a different set of numbers come out and different predictions of what's happening with interest rates as to whether they'll be holding steady, going up or potentially going down. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they'll stay higher for longer. I think if the RBA do cut rates anytime soon, they'll just let inflation run again. The RBA cash rate is one of the lowest in the developed world, so it must be noted that interest rates were cut last week in Europe and in Canada. So that is a good sign for anyone here in Australia looking for rate cuts, John. But I think because we actually have the highest inflationary growth rates in the world at the moment, as we know in the last couple of readings that we've had for inflation, it's gone up. So I don't see the RBA cutting anytime soon. You could probably, in my view, unless the data turns dramatically, you probably won't see a rate cut to 2025 now.
Okay. Into the financial year, any clues there? What do you do? Do you buy or sell? Is that a magic line, or is it something we just draw on a calendar?
Look, it is winter, and stock levels are very tight in winter, and that will create some strength in itself. So there were some pretty healthy results in the 68% clearance rate around Sydney this weekend and even the weekend before, and that is largely driven by too many buys for too little stock in certain suburbs. There was one notable sale in Chatswood this weekend. It had a price guide of 1.55 million and sold above 2 million, and there were 17 bidders at the auction.
Wow.
So I think if you've got 17 bidders at your auction, your price guide is clearly too low, and that's a brazen case of underquoting there to be, putting a stylish architect-designed home in Chatswood to the market with a guide of 155. But nevertheless, 17 people turned up to the auction thinking or hoping they were a chance of securing it. So it does show that buyer demand is very strong for certain product.
Okay, and just a final one then, in terms of all the efforts being made to build more homes, particularly in our cities, closer to the centre of the cities. A lot of these are medium density, and we have this argument over apartments. Now, I grew up in a flat in Bondi, so a lot of people have lived in apartments, but just in relation to apartment living, what's your sense in terms of where we're going with all of this and whether we might see this cultural change? Because countries around the world, a lot of people live and grow up in apartments, don't they? Big cities?
Yeah, look, it's clearly the government's vision that families and children will end up living in apartments en masse. I saw a report during the week that apartment sales in many suburbs are now outnumbering house sales. So it is where the trend line is going, and that's a global a trend that you've outlined there, John. I think it's a bit of a shame, but given the way both sides of government are talking, it's hard to imagine that future families will have a house and land package mentality.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, where you had the old Art Deco apartments, and they were relatively close to the beach. They had no balconies. They had very small windows. They really weren't built to try and let the light into the place. So there's apartments and there are apartments. And it depends what's around that apartment too, in terms of parks.
That's right. And I think the government are making every effort to put amenities around these new apartment precincts that they've got planned, and that will make them more livable. But I guess from a nostalgic point of view, it would be nice to see families be able to purchase a house and land close to the city, but in the city of Sydney, that's just not possible, as we know.
All right. Always good to talk to you, Peter. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure, John. Thank you.
The all-new Lexus LBX has arrived at Lexus of Blackburn. It's a compact without compromise hybrid city SUV. It's dynamic, it's commanding, it's memorable. And of course, it's a Lexus. Arrive in the new Lexus LBX. Test drive the breakthrough crossover Lexus LBX at Lexus of Blackburn today. We look forward to your arrival. LMCT 10093.
Will and I have so enjoyed bringing you the heart of racing every week, but we've decided to pull in the big guns. In our next episode, the great man, Glenn Bossy Boss, is going to join us ahead of the Stradbroke Handicap, one of the greatest jockeys the nation's ever seen. We're so looking forward to having him on the show right here on The Heart of Racing.